Hi guys, I'm Jay Horton. I make movies that make money, and this is how. Earlier this morning, I crossed 5,000 subscribers, and I just wanted to do a little live stream to thank everyone who supported the channel and commented and shares and likes and watches new videos. It's really means a lot to me. Yeah. Anyway, I did this little intro video for you guys, so check this out, and I'll be back in a few minutes. So a few hours ago, my channel crossed 5,000 subscribers here on YouTube. I know, it sounds like a relatively small number, but I worked pretty hard for it. I really just wanted to take a quick second to celebrate. Yay! So, in anticipation of crossing 5,000, I asked my subscribers for questions for this live stream. Here's a couple of those questions. I'd like updates on the ever-changing landscape of film distribution. What's working? What is no longer viable? A list of distribution options. Why? And ones to avoid. And why would also be great. Okay, wow. All right, let's do the ever-changing distribution landscape first. What's working and what's not. Distribution is changing and morphing daily, right before our very eyes. And there's no longer a one-size-fits-all answer, if there ever was. Basically, what I'm doing right now is using a quick-release, high-volume method. I make about one low-budget feature documentary film a month, and I put them out through either Indie Rights, which is a distributor, or Filmhub, which is a marketplace. And look, let me get real honest for a second here. The main reason that I pick, Filmhub over Indie Rights or Indie Rights over Filmhub for any particular project, it really has little to do with preferring one over the other. At the end of the day, it's really mostly for me about not keeping all my eggs in one basket. I just like to stay diversified. And of course, those two are not the only games in town. I've worked with many different distributors and sales agents over the years, but these are the ones that more recently, they've been working for me. But I know people want to hear about other distributors, so let me give you a quick list of a few distributors that I heard are working well for others. Caveat, I am not currently working with any of these distributors. Uncorked, Gravitas Ventures, ITN, Wild Eye Releasing, Terra Films, Lightyear Entertainment. Now, of course, not all of the feedback I've heard about all of them is good, so make sure and do your own research before picking any distributor. As for bad ones, look, I don't like throwing distributors or other filmmakers under the bus by naming specific bad ones. And the reason I don't typically do it is this. If I have no direct, specific knowledge or experience with a distributor, like I've just heard things, then anything bad that I share is really just gossip. Now, this isn't to say that there aren't many legit complaints out there. There are. There definitely are. And there are predatory or bad distributors out there. So, with all that said, let me talk about a few that I've had direct experiences with that I feel comfortable speaking about, and that I do avoid to this day. Green Apple. Bad reporting, bad communication. I never saw a dime on 2 different movies. Adler and Associates. Just all around shady. Shoreline Entertainment. Bad reporting, inflated sales costs, inflated marketing costs. After my license had expired on a 7-year license, they offered me a 70-30 split to renew the movie for a streaming distribution, and that was favoring them. 30% for me and 70% for them. And no, that's not a joke. And honestly, that's about it. That's the extent of my direct experience over the past few years with bad distributors. Okay, so the other question, what genres are doing well in the current landscape? Well, keep in mind that we're talking about low to micro budget stuff here. I mean, that's basically what this channel is. Like, I'm talking about the business side of micro budget and low budget stuff. If you're looking to make $10 million movies, a lot of the stuff I'm talking about here is not going to apply. Anyway, so what are some good genres for this lower budget milieu? Lifetime type stuff. Yeah, like Lifetime Network type stuff. And I don't necessarily mean in execution or like, TV level censored. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like plot here. I'm basically talking about light thrillers with a romantic element. Not straight horror, but thriller. These tend to do very well in the low budget realm. Then there's horror. Look, horror is always going to be a staple of low budget films. And I think it's always going to do fine. Sometimes better, sometimes worse, but I think it's about the safest bet you can get as far as low budget stuff goes. Probably the hottest horror subgenre right now, as far as, sales and returns, would be creature features. And you have to at least have a decent creature design. These are performing well. And if you have a good creature, no names needed. I've heard of a few lower end distributors even doing MGs for these type of movies when they're good. As far as horror that's not working so well these days, I would say straight up like slasher, killer in the woods stuff. I just feel that is so oversaturated right now that it's hard to get any traction with it. But just like with any of these genres, good or bad, if you do a really good movie, it's going to stand out. Another genre, believe it or not, that's doing really well in the indie scene right now is romantic comedies. They're kind of killing it. Totally counter to what like distributors and stuff used to say at the higher end. But like on Tubi, these things are doing really well. And last but not least, documentaries across the board. Just niche down and look for subjects and interviewees that have a built-in audience or some kind of fan base. And look, these don't have to be like huge thousands and thousands of people fan bases, just enough to push your movie up in the streaming algorithm when the things are released. I mean, if you have one person, an interviewee that has, a mailing list with like, 1,000 people, and, 70 or 80% of them are actually going to watch the movie, in those first couple of days and give it a little review and all of that, that can help a ton. One final question, well, really more of a comment. A person here on YouTube said this: "Congrats. Somehow your subscriber base and individual video views are not proportional. What do you think?" I guess they're saying that my video views look low next to my subscriber count, or high for my subscriber count. Honestly, I don't know. What does a channel with 5,000 subscribers, what do those video views look like? What do you folks think? Like, should I be getting more views with 5,000 subscribers? I mean, I'd like to think so. So, let's open this up here for live questions. Coming at you. Here I am. All right. Hey, I'm so glad, grateful for everyone that jumped in early. I like to do those little intro videos because I've said this many times on live stream, but I do get super like nervous like crazy when it comes to live streams. So I like to do the little intro thing. It helps me warm up, look at a couple of the questions in the chat, stuff like that. So first off, I did that last little question. The guy was asking if I thought that my individual video views were kind of low for a channel with 5,000 subscribers. And like I said in the thing, I really don't know. But do you guys have an opinion on that? Do you think it if my videos are doing 200 or 300 views in a week, is that low for a 5,000 subscriber channel? Honestly, I don't know. So let's start getting to questions. So Tyler asks, how many films have you released so far? Wow. Okay. So, over 60, somewhere between 60 and 70. I would have to actually look at my IMDb. But yeah, something like that. I started in 2003, directed my first movie. It was a horror movie. And then, I did another like 15 or so in the next 10 years after that. And then in the last like 2 years, I've done almost 20 feature documentaries, which has been going pretty well. So yeah, a lot. Ba, ba, ba. All right. So Zachary asks, have you seen trailers for the new Bond movie? No. Or yes, I'm sorry, I have. I mean, the trailers have been out for so long. I mean, it feels like one of the movies that's never going to come out. But yeah, looks good. Looks good. Wait. Da, da, da. Marky Men asked, do your metrics show an upward trend or a downward trend? You know, it's kind of complicated. So my average view duration has definitely went up. My click-through rates have went up a little bit. I've put out more videos. I have more longer videos that are getting longer views. My CPMs have gone up. But if you're just looking from the outside, you know, looking at video views, I wouldn't say it's went down, but it feels kind of stagnated. Like I'll put out a new video, like one of my, you know, 5 to 10 minute videos, and I do those on Wednesdays. And, you know, they typically day one get between 100 and 200 views, something like that. And that's been fairly consistent for about the last 6 months, hasn't really went up or down. And then they top out around 400 views in those first couple weeks. And then over time, they'll get more views. So, you know, like I have some older videos with 3,000 views and, you know, 4,000 views. I have a couple of movies that have 250,000 views, but, you know, my regular vlog stuff, I mean, to me, on the inside, even though I'm looking at the increases in CPM and watch time and all that, it feels a little stagnant. Like, I mean, I can't lie. I would love to have higher view numbers, especially, you know, in those early days when I'm releasing them. But, you know, I don't really do it for view numbers. It's just one of those things. I'm like everybody else. I get a little serotonin hit when they come in, or dopamine hit. All right. So Simplified Films asks, how do you approach documentaries? Do you shoot interviews first? Okay. So the first thing I do when I'm getting ready to do a documentary, you know, first, you know, I pick a subject. You know, when I first started them, I predominantly just did stuff I was interested in, you know, that I wanted to work on, wanted to do a documentary on. And then over time, I, you know, narrowed that down to stuff that I was still interested in, but stuff that I knew from experience because of the past documentaries that was going to perform better in the marketplace. So after I get them picked, you know, say I'm going to do a documentary on, let's just pick one. Say I'm going to do an afterlife documentary because I have an afterlife documentary coming out. So the first thing I do is I start looking for people within that industry, you know, people that have some kind of following with that in that industry. And I start reaching out and see if they would like to take place in the documentary. I tend to look for interview subjects that are geographically either close to me or close to a shooter that I use. You know, like I have a shooter in LA I have a guy in New York. You know, I'm in Georgia now. I have a guy I've worked with in the UK a lot. And so we'll do all the interviews, either them or me will shoot that interview. And then, you know, I'll collect them. You know, I'll have them follow the person around, get some B-roll. I always try to get some existing B-roll from the subjects as well, whether it's, you know, just pictures, childhood pictures, videos that they may have taken. And then from there, you know, get everything shot. And then I just, you know, I do an initial layout. I put everything on a timeline. I do not transcribe. What I do though is I watch it straight through, and wherever there's a new question, I put a marker and I mark the time code, and I'd be like, okay, this is where he answers this question, or this is where he answers that question. And I do that all the way through. And then if there's any particular like bits that jump out as like trailer moments or something like that, I'll cut those out and put them in a trailer bin, or I'll mark the moment, you know, in my little Excel sheet. Like if somebody says a little line and I'm like, oh my God, that line would be great to end the documentary on, I'll make a note of that. And I just run all the way through it. And I do that first initial process, like almost real time. Like if I have a 3-hour interview, I can watch it and notate it in about, well, I said real time, it's about double the time. Like it takes me 2 to 3 hours to do an hour interview. And then from there, I just, you know, start cutting, you know, and put it together and then distribute. And that's pretty much my documentary method in a nutshell. Yeah, got that one already. Sorry, guys. Man, I haven't done a live stream in so long. I'm like, wait, where are the buttons? Your like view impression is super high. I think that bodes well for how much your subscribers enjoy your content. Oh, thank you, Brian. I hope so. Like I said, it feels it feels a little stagnant. I know it's not, but when it's been like 6 months and I put a video out and it never breaks like 200 views on the first day, it can be a little take a little bit of the wind out of your sails. But like I said, I don't do it exclusively for views. I'm doing this to spread information, and even with those lower view counts, they do end up making some money. Like I'm making some supplemental money off the ad revenue on this channel now. Not huge, but it's something. Zachary asks, what is the most expensive work you've directed or produced? Excuse me. So I typically work in the lower budget range, between, stuff as cheap as $1,000 or, up to like $25,000, $30,000. That's like my, you know, that's where I mostly work. I've done others, especially like I've directed a lot of movies for others where they were $50,000 or $60,000. I did one movie directed. It's called. They changed the title. It's called The Sin Choice. Jacarius Johnson produced it, and the budget of that was it was over 200,000, I believe. But I wasn't doing numbers on that. I was just the director, so I couldn't say for sure. But it had a lot of name talent. We were shooting in a studio. Like we had, I forget what cameras we shot on, but we had really expensive Cook lenses. I mean, full crew. It's the probably the biggest crew I've ever worked with. Like 50 or 60 people on set besides the cast. It was pretty neat. But anyway, he released that through his own streaming network, and that's like the only place it is. But if you look up Jacarius Johnson, like The Sin Choice, it pops up. On Tubi, Brian asks, when you click on a specific category like drama or comedy, you get a list of films. How does this list represent how your film is doing? Honestly, Brian, and this is just conjecture because I'm not talking to, Tubi's, engineers and whatnot, but I would assume that movies that are popular within their algorithm get preferred placement on those lists. I know dealing with Filmhub, for example, like when I upload a movie to them, it's not a platform, but the movies that are doing better for them, they get higher spots in the list that they show to platforms. And I would assume that the platforms are exactly like that. Or it could be, a project that they're wanting to push or, trying to give a push to. But I would say in general, it's stuff that's popular because I honestly think all of that's automated. I don't think there's a human being making that decision. I think it's all, computer and algorithm. And Brian had a little bit more to that question, but I think I answered it. Does my film showing in the first 10 mean it's doing better? I would say most likely it does mean that, but not necessarily. It's complicated, like the way the algorithms work, and I really honestly wish I understood it better. But from my understanding of it, if you're appearing up in those searches, you must be doing pretty good. You know what? I can speak from one example. I had a documentary, I Want to Believe. It first hit Tubi about a year ago, and like for the first month, or maybe it was the second month, I can't remember, but it was in whatever the top 10 like documentaries, and like it did better that month. Like when it was off that list, it wasn't doing quite as good. So yeah, I think it does. What's on the planner board behind you? I always wanted to know, but can you talk about it real quick? I'm from Brazil and a fan. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see, which one? This. Okay, so I actually have two of these. They're like, I don't know if you can tell, it's like 2 feet wide, and it's just a monthly calendar. This is September, and then the one behind that you can't see is for October. And then I have a wall calendar over there that has the rest of the year. So I use it just because I use it for my YouTube channel. So everything that I have scheduled, all the different videos, if I have interviews set up with somebody, like I'll have those listed there. And because it changes, I like to keep it on the dry erase. I used to work for a mentor years ago when I was owned Gas Money Pictures, and he used to talk to me about not having everything digital, having spreadsheets. He says like there's something about it being tactile, and I just like it. So it's how I do. And then I actually have another dry erase board on the other wall that's even bigger, and it has a list of like all the projects I'm working on, interviews that I might be doing, documentaries, collaborations, stuff like that. And yeah, I love dry erase boards. Like I pretty much put them all over my walls. But oh yeah, like for example, like right here on the 12th, I have an interview with Jason Mills that's dropping. Um, Actually, I kind of went all over all that. Um, but that's how I do my planning, basically. And I do have like a Google, Google, what do you call it? Google Calendar, and I do use that. But I like the tactile thing. I'm just like old school like that. Peter Hedgecock asks, "What do you think about vuulur distributor?" First off, vuulur is not a distributor. It's like Filmhub. They're a marketplace. It's basically somewhere where you list your movies, and then different platforms, buyers, maybe even foreign distributors look at it, and then we'll decide whether or not they want to pick up your movie for specific territories. vuulur is useful for, I think it's mostly foreign-based sales. So I think it's okay. I've listed probably 20 movies on there, and I've made like maybe half a dozen small licensing deals. Like some of these are as little as like, some company in Bulgaria will say, "Hey, we want to do a streaming release here in Bulgaria," and they'll give you $200. Or $1,000, or whatever it is. They can be really low. And then vuulur acts as like a middleman, kind of in the same way Filmhub does, but it's not quite as controlled. Like you have a little more direct contact with the platform there. But again, out of 20, like I said, I've made maybe 6 deals, and out of those 6, like 4 of them worked out. 2 of them, I don't have nothing bad to say about them. They just flaked when it came down to actually delivering the movie. Like they made the deal, said we're going to pay you this money, and then okay, so where do I deliver the movie? And then you never hear from them again. But I don't really put that on the platform themselves. It's just like Filmhub. Like it's not necessarily their fault if something isn't performing on a certain platform. It has more to do with the platform than the service. So like I think vuulur is a cool idea. I continue to use it, but to be 100% honest, I don't think I've put a new title up there in the last 6 months. It's one of those ones that I always forget about. But I'll probably circle back to it. Because the way I look at it, and this is a good note for just general streaming distribution in general, like people get so hung up on, I want to get on Hulu, or I want to get on Netflix, or I want to get this, big like paycheck deal for every platform. Like I want to get a $25,000 licensing deal, or I want to make $10,000, for the year. And to be honest, in this streaming distribution age, if you're making a little movie, 50,000 under, 20,000 under, the odds are you're not ever going to see a single paycheck that big for any platform. Like I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, that it doesn't happen. It does, but it's rare. It's much more likely that you're going to get $1,000 or a couple $100 or $500, and then you just have to get on enough variety of these platforms that starts to add up. Like a lot of my titles, a lot of my documentary titles, that have made, almost like six figures within the year, that is all composed of like $1,000 here, $200 there, $50 there, $20 there, $5 here, so on and so forth. But then over the course of the year, all these little things, they add up. And then you're looking at, $80,000 or $60,000 or $20,000 or $30,000. And, it can add up. So I would say never get like too narrow in your focus of where you want to release. I'm not saying windowing can't work. Windowing absolutely can work, but I'm just saying in the lifetime of the movie, don't discount all these other platforms. Like if you want to do windowing, great. Release your movie and put it on, Vimeo or Amazon or wherever you want to do rental purchase, and do that exclusively for 3 months or for as long as it's selling well. But then when that starts to drop out, just don't let it die. Submit it to all these little platforms. Even if it's $5, who cares? You get enough platforms paying you $5 a month, that movie could end up making you thousands of dollars for the year, on these little tiny platforms. Anyway, that's my take on that. All right. And then Marky says, sorry, my computer's a little messed up. Oh yeah. I am drawn more to long form content. That's me. I don't think I'm normal. I like those long interviews and chats that you do the most. You know what, man? I honestly like doing them the most because so I started doing the channel just to do the little short ones, and I was super into it, because it was like just me talking into the camera, and I'd edit them, and it was kind of cool. But I honestly, they're a shitload more work. Like it takes me, 45 minutes to an hour now to edit one of those like 5-minute pieces where, I could do a 60-minute interview and edit it pretty much in real time. Like it'd be done in an hour and a half, and it's 50 minutes of content. So yeah, I like that. I get to put more ads in the longer content. I'm going to make more money on the longer content. But that said, that I basically built a good percent of my followers on this channel from the shorter form content. Like I would say I didn't start doing the longer form videos. I think I've been doing them for a little under a year, maybe a year. And I've been doing the channel serious for 2 years. So that first year it was like all short videos. And, so I feel like I have a base, a loyal base that does that I have to cater to. I feel like I have to give them, at least a video a week. So that's pretty much why I do those. Oh, that's cool. Sorry, I'm still learning how to navigate my comments. Savvy Lemon Studios says something. Yeah. Hi, Jay. I'm currently in the middle of a high school series. Will it be better to self-distribute it on YouTube or work with Filmhub for distribution? Honestly, they're not mutually exclusive things. You can do both. What I would recommend is, debut on YouTube and at the same time submit it to Filmhub. It's going to take Filmhub, a minimum of 3 weeks to process it and get it up anywhere. And if you're talking like Tubi TV or one of those, that can take up to 2-3 months. So like do the YouTube release, put all your effort into promoting it there. And then as, Filmhub starts placing it on other platforms, then you kind of treat it as a new release and start promoting it on those. But yeah, you can absolutely do both, and there's no reason not to. The other way to work that would be conversely, like start it with Filmhub, because like I don't know if your YouTube channel is monetized, then forget this. But if your YouTube channel is not monetized, then maybe start on Filmhub. Take those 2 or 3 months till they get it up, because like those platforms are going to be paying, and it'll be exclusive there. So you can put all your effort into promoting it there. And then if that falls off, or if it's just not performing, then go ahead and throw it up on YouTube. Now, if you have a monetized channel, that's a whole other thing. If your channel's monetized, then I would say just, throw it up. I have not yet started premiering movies on YouTube, even though my channel is monetized, although I have been putting up movies, but usually it's, more towards the end of their distribution journey, and I'll throw them up on YouTube. But I'm planning, because, I do almost a doc a month. I'm planning on experimenting with a couple of them this year where I premiere them on YouTube just to see how it goes. I mean, so far, my documentary numbers on YouTube have been relatively low. I've put up maybe 6 features, and out of those, I think 2 were documentaries, 2 or 3, and the rest were my narratives. The narratives do way better, especially like for my channel, like the horror stuff like took way off. Edges of Darkness did 250,000 views in the first 3 months. Rise of the Undead did 65. I think it's at 65,000 views now in 2 months, 2 or 3. And then, I have a couple other narratives I put up from other people that are in the, 5 to 10,000 range. But then I think the documentaries are all struggling to break 1,000. But who knows? Maybe over time that'll grow. And then the other thing I'm doing is I have a documentary channel called Zapruder Flicks where I put clips from my documentaries. I've thought about doing like documentary tutorials over there and trying to build that channel towards monetization and maybe being more focused on documentaries there. That might do better. But, it's a lot of work to build a channel, man. It took me almost a year to get this from 200 to 1,000, so it doesn't exactly excite me to think about starting over on another channel that has I think the documentary channel has like 170 subscribers or something now, but we'll see. All right. Mr. Berger says, I'm on Plex and Typhoon. Do you have any idea what the payout per minute on those platforms happen to be? I don't. That's the thing about Filmhub, man. The platforms, and it's not. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. It's not Filmhub. Filmhub would be transparent about everything. But like a lot of these platforms, they're proprietary with their rates. They don't list them. They're not readily available. Unless you have a direct deal with them, you're probably not going to know. So yeah, I have no idea with Plex. All I know right now is I have probably 25 titles on there. And so far, it hasn't amounted to a ton of money. I think I'm probably pulling in I don't know, no more than $20 a title a month right now. But what I always tell people, like when it comes to Plex and Typhoon and some of these other like up and coming platforms, like stick it out. Cause like you never know when that thing is going to turn around and be like Tubi TV. 4 years ago, Tubi TV wasn't hardly paying anything. I mean, their rates were probably the same, but they didn't have a subscriber base. People weren't watching them. My thought on the rates from some of the platforms that I've talked to, like behind the scenes, most of their rates they're comparable. They're about the same. There's some that pay more and some pay a little less, but like across the board, it's pretty much the same. The differences aren't so much in the rate they're paying, but in their subscriber base or how popular the platform is. Like that's why Tubi is so like incredibly lucrative right now for filmmakers. I mean, for all we know, they could be paying less than Amazon, but they're not. But they they could be, but it's so popular and so many people are watching the things that it's making more money. Simplify. Oh, sorry. Another one from Mr. Berger. FYI, I'm discovering that foreign markets have an aversion to cartoons that use curse words. You know what? I honestly didn't know that, but I guess it makes sense. But yeah, that sucks. But I would think with yours, like you should be able to hit it domestically. But yeah, man, I don't know. What about like UK and stuff like that? Does it do better there, like English speaking ones, or is it just like foreign in general you're having trouble with? To be honest, I don't have a lot of experience with specific foreign sales these days. All the narratives that I was doing, 10 years ago, the other producers were dealing with that. And what I've found these days anyway is like it's so like all these platforms are starting to go worldwide. Like Tubi is popping up here and there, like all over the world. Amazon's all over the world. So at least right now, I honestly I don't put as much effort into it as I probably should. Actually, you know what? I'm going to make that pledge this year. I am going to concentrate more on foreign distribution and sales, and I will do more videos as I learn a little more about it. Okay, simplified filming. Yeah. What documentary or feature film do you think was your best performer? Financial. I'm assuming you mean financially. Best documentary for me that I produced and made out was probably, there's two of them, and I don't want to name the titles, but they were both astrology features. If you follow my work, you can probably figure out which one it is. They were features on astrology. It just so happened to have a really the interview subject was just really popular in that realm and had a very like rabid, dedicated fan base. Not a huge fan base, but a dedicated one. And those people watched the shit out of his movie in the first like 2, 3 days it was out. And it was like, so what I think happens with something like that, you have this like giant influx of people that were waiting for it and watching it and supporting it. And I think that that kicks it up in the algorithm. And that is why, the did better because of that. Um, Outside of those, the Bigfoot things that I've done have done really well. I just did one on pro wrestling called Other Side of the Ring. Did really well. I directed a documentary. I did not. I was an associate producer on it, but I just directed a documentary for Jean-Claude Lamar called Black Magic Live, which is about a black male review, like exotic dancers, like not strippers. They're doing like Vegas show type stuff. And man, that turned out really well. And that movie even got an MG, which I can't really talk about, but it was decent. So, and I have a feeling like it's been picked up by Stars. Like I think that one's going to do really well. But again, because it's for another producer, I won't be able to, jump on here and give like specific numbers or anything like that. I mean, honestly, I might not even ever know them. I was pretty much paid up front for it. So Peter Hitchcock asks, so Tubi first, then vuulur. Yeah, or you can do both at the same time. I mean, it's all non-exclusive. Like those marketplace things, like it's not either or. Just like the YouTube question earlier, like this is all like non-exclusive, and you can do it in whatever order you so choose. And there's people that'll argue, say, well, you should open up in the States and then go foreign, or you should do foreign and go into the States. It all depends on the movie, and honestly, every project's so different. I couldn't give a general answer to that. But typically at the low budget range, I'm just like, submit it everywhere. It's not going to get up at the same time anyway. It's going to take so long to, process at vuulur. It's going to take so long to process at Filmhub. I'm sure it's not going to be the same amount of time. The platforms are going to be different. I say just if it's something you're considering doing, I'd say just go for it. But again, before you do, and this is one thing I want to say too, guys, before you take any advice from me on here, before you go to Filmhub and sign up and start uploading your movie, or you go to vuulur and sign up and start uploading your movie, like look into it yourself. Like, don't just trust me, do some research on it, like, and understand like how the payouts work and how long it takes to get paid and like stuff like that. Cause like, I've been a big cheerleader for Filmhub, and I think I did my first video on them like a year ago, and I think I've done six or seven of them since. Like I really like Filmhub. I think it's a great company. But one of the drawbacks with Filmhub is it takes a little bit of time to get that first payment. Sometimes, man, it can be almost a year. I think I waited 9 months for my first one, and I've done videos explaining this. I'm not going to get into that on here. Go watch those videos. But where was I going with that? I was wow, I just got it like rolling, and then I was like, what was the point I was trying to make? Um, All right, you know what? I lost my train of thought, guys. Sorry, getting old. All right. What's a dream feature project you have, like money, no object type of thing? Well, Zachary, oh, you know what? I should show his question. There we go. I have man, when I first moved to LA, like I was super in a writing zone. I have about 20 scripts that have yet to be made, that are written, that I'd love to do. And we'll see. And actually, honestly, most of them are reasonable budgets. I mean, there could be a 10 million or $20 million version of them with certain casts, but I can make any of them probably for under $1 million. Much less than that. There's one I actually optioned the script a ways back called Moving Day. It was about like two roommates from Louisiana. One of them's a recovering alcoholic. They moved to LA. She moves in with this roommate from hell. And then like a year later on Moving Day, the alcoholic has a relapse, and she wakes up after a blackout, can't remember anything the night before, and that roommate from hell is dead. and so she doesn't know if she killed her or not. And then, the movie's basically, flashes back to all the steps trying to figure out who killed her, why, and how they may or may not get away with it. Really cool noir thing. And then I have this really big like supernatural thriller. I think I wrote it around like Underworld and like Preacher days, not Preacher, or the movie Preacher, not the show. And it's a like a supernatural thriller about God and the devil like joining forces to fight a new third deity. I mean, it's total nerd crap, but I really liked it. It's got some some really cool action set pieces. It's something I'd like to do someday, but we'll see. I mean, to be 100% honest, I've kind of, I've been making the low budget movies for so long now that, and I make my living off of them. I'm not a rich man, but I do okay. And I honestly, as I've gotten older, like I really don't have a huge desire to work on $1 million movies with huge crews. Part of it's my social anxiety. Some of it's just that I just I like the control that comes with doing a lot of things yourself and having these small projects. And when I do a movie for five or ten or $20,000 and it's my money, I got nobody to answer to, like nobody. I don't have to take a note if I don't want to take a note. If I work on $1 million movie, even if I have creative control, you have a fiscal responsibility to that producer. You have a fiscal responsibility to return that budget. And I've worked on, some movies, not huge budgets, but we're talking 60 or 70 that didn't make their money back, and there's one in particular I've talked about on this channel, Death Day, which, I think the hard costs of that were around like 55, 60,000. And, the investors, it was a fairly large group of investors, investing, small amounts, like 1,000 or 2,000, almost like crowdfunding, but not, we never did a crowdfunder. But anyway, a lot of these people, they had the money then, but say we're like 5 years later and like they're broke, man, I'd love to get that money back. And that movie never made any money, and I have to live with that. And it's tough because, some of them I paid out of my pocket just because I felt bad about it. But yeah, it just sucks. So anyway, I'm for one, I'm happy to do smaller movies. All right. Marky asks, what film or TV franchise would you hope to be asked to direct, or what would you do for a sequel reboot? Man, there's nothing. There's no one big dream. I'd love to do this TV show or that TV show that exists. I mean, I'm not saying I would say no if something came my way, but I don't. There's nothing in particular that I dream of. My whole outlook, and I was kind of just talking about this, like on filmmaking, has changed quite a bit. I mean, in my early 20s when I was a teenager, probably all the way into my mid 30s, I wanted to be, like Spike Lee or Quentin Tarantino. Like I wanted to be a rock star director. Man, now I just want to make stuff that people connect with, on some level, that some group of people like, and that puts food on my table. And if I can do those two things, which I'm doing now, like that's all I need. Anyway, Jeff, thank you, Jeff. Yes. All right. Can you tell me briefly how I can access my Filmhub analytics? Filmhub analytics. I mean, you just go to the Filmhub dashboard and you go to detail, and they list them there. They don't give like super detailed analytics. The platforms there just listing or reporting what the movie makes in a given month or a given day, and that's all it'll be. It's not going to tell you like click through rates or anything like that. That is something I really wish they had, and I think it's something that from my conversations with the CEO there that I think they are actively working on. But again, like with Filmhub, a lot of that stuff, their hands are tied by the platforms. It's like they want to work with Tubi TV, and if Tubi TV has all these like you can't do this and that, what are they going to do? They have to abide by the rules to keep the platforms going. But anyway, so yeah, that it's on the dashboard. Dashboard insights detail is how you find that, and you can do the detailed reporting by, I think it goes quarterly, monthly, or you can go by the day. But again, like, not all the platforms report daily. Not all the platforms report monthly. Some only report every 3 months. Some only report every 6 months. And again, Filmhub can't control when these guys uh, give their data. They basically have to go with the flow, and it's the new way of film distribution. These things have changed. Like, we're not living in an era anymore where there's like only 5 or 6 release avenues. There's 100, and every single one of them is going to have a different set of rules, a different set of QC, a different way to give their analytics or what they will or won't share. And it's all going to be different. And so like Filmhub's doing the best they can, keeping us as informed and being as transparent as possible. And I think over time, because I know it's something that they want to do faster, they want to do more, they want to have more analytics. So that's something that I hope will happen more, because I would love to have them. Like, to me, the biggest trade-off between doing Filmhub and doing something like Amazon on your own is, like, Amazon on your own, you get almost those daily, like, this many minutes viewed, which was pretty cool. You can't quite count on that on Filmhub. But and at the same time, I have at least 30 movies on Filmhub, maybe 40, that make decent money. And to be honest, I don't even hardly look at the analytics anymore. I'll look to generally see if a movie's doing well in what month, and then I'll use that info to either put more money into promotion or less. And that's pretty much all I do. Filmhub's instructional videos are very lacking on how to actually, yeah, the the Filmhub's so my two, and I have a video coming out in a few weeks about potential problems with Filmhub. And this my major gripe with Filmhub, and this is a fairly minor gripe in the grand scheme of things, but it comes down to communication. Like, you're not going to get them on the phone. It's always going to be by email. Questions will take 24 hours to answer, and a lot of the times the answers that you get back are just like stock responses off their FAQ sheet, which are, granted, a little hard to follow. And I don't think that's because they're purposely trying to be vague or they're not trying to be clear. I just think that it's like the whole system is so complicated. There's so many platforms, there's so many filmmakers on it. It's really hard to get all the information that you want. So that's kind of that. Sorry, man. I'm planning to shoot a horror film for 20K. What advice can you give me for maximal success? What subgenre would you choose? Where would you concentrate your budget, and where would you distribute? Okay, that's a good question. 20,000. What's your, like, general budget for that? Like, I mean, general budget, genre, like, or do you not care? You're just asking in general, like, what genre would I use? Okay. So I'll answer this a couple of ways. If I was gonna just pick any genre out of a hat, I would 20,000. I would probably do like a light thriller. And by light thriller, I mean, like, uh, and I mean this. I think I said this in the intro video at the beginning. Like a Lifetime movie plot, not in execution or in, like, edited for TV style or anything like that. But I mean, I just mean like plot. So, like, you have a light thriller with a romantic element. And then I would cast diversely. And look, guys, I cast diversely on features just anyway, because that's how I like to make movies. But especially in the low budget range, a diverse cast is it's going to help your sales. And looking at numbers from other people on Tubi, like, the differences between, like, guys that do, like, like, if you have a white filmmaker and they're doing just, like, all stacked, white cast, and then right next to it, it's like the same genre, but, like, say it's maybe predominantly black, or it's a mix of black, Hispanic, white, whatever. The mixed one, 90% of the time is going to have higher returns. Um, and I don't want to get into a whole discussion about, why that is, but I think that's where I would go. And then as far as money goes, at 20K, so it's getting close to that point where you might want to go like SAG and get like one name actor, because like you could get a name actor like like Eric Roberts or Tom Sizemore or something like that to come in for a day or 2 days for a small chunk of that budget, you know. But the downside to that is, and to going SAG, especially if you've never done it before, is you'll most likely have a pretty high what's it called, deposit, and you will get the deposit back, but you have to pay it up front. Like the last movie that I did full SAG on was Death Day, and I think our cast budget was around $12,000 for the whole shoot, and up front I had to pay that entire $12,000 to SAG plus a $10,000 deposit up front. And I did not get the deposit back until I want to say a month to 6 weeks after the project had wrapped. So, for $10,000 worth of cast, I had to pay $20,000. So that might not be feasible. But sometimes you can find some name cast, especially cast that may have fallen off a little bit, that'll be willing to do the movie, even if it isn't SAG, if you're paying them the cash up front. I've seen that happen. I can't name names publicly, but it happens. But anyway, so yeah, I'd put, if you're doing the name and regular cast, around 5,000 into that. I would put 10,000 into the movie itself, production costs. I would save 1,000 for marketing, and you need about another, and I may have just messed my mouth up here, but you might need another like $2,000 for if you're going with a larger distributor, you'll need E&O insurance. Or production insurance, and you should have production insurance. So about like that. And then for distribution, I mean, I sound like a broken record with these two, but at 20,000, I would go with indie rights, or I would do Filmhub. That's how I do the distribution. Now there are a few others that work in that range that I've heard do pretty well, but I don't have direct contact with. Like I've heard Uncourt is good. I've heard Gravitas Ventures can be all right. I've heard some good things about ITN. I've also heard bad things, but every movie's different. So yeah, that's pretty much how I do that. So, Mr. Berger, China, Saudi Arabia, Africa, and North Asia are extremely sensitive markets to PG-13 content. That makes sense, man. I totally buy that. And I know, I'm not suggesting, messing with your artistic intent or anything, but have you thought about doing an edited version for foreign like that, like the way they do TV versions? I don't know, just a thought. I mean, I probably personally wouldn't, but it's an option. So Scott Spears asked, oh, this is a good question. Sorry if somebody's asked this, but how has the loss of having Amazon for documentaries affected your strategy for production and releasing films? So overall, it hasn't affected how I'm doing it too much, but it's hurt. I'll be honest. I think in the first 6 months the second 6 months that Amazon made the drop, because the first 6 months I still had enough that had just come out. I was still making some pretty good money there. But that started dwindling at about the 6-8 month mark. And in the last year, I mean, I have probably lost like an overall, between 30 and 40% of my overall income was coming from Amazon, from new stuff on Amazon. Like Amazon, even at that 1 penny an hour, and everybody says you can't make no money on Amazon, but I was making money on Amazon. I had quite a few new documentaries that were making 1,000 or more a month there at a penny an hour. So it smarts, but it's that gap is narrowing. like as I'm making more on Tubi and like new platforms like Plex are coming out, and like I just said earlier, like I'm not making a ton on Plex right now, but like I'm making more there now than I was 6 months ago, and hopefully 6 months from now it'll be that much more, and so on and so forth. I'm also starting to do decently on Xmo, or Zumo, whatever it's called, XUMO. Um, Again, not huge numbers, but like I have several movies that are making, a few hundred a month on it, and when you're looking at some of these smaller platforms, it's not bad. Brian, you were discussing due diligence and not trusting you, but rather doing your own research. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the way I look at this is like I'm giving people like a direction to go, but I'm just a dude sitting behind a camera. Like I mean, yes, you can look up my work, you can go up to IMDb, you can, check me out and say, okay, well, this guy's legit. But when I tell you I made $4,000 in a month on this movie, you have no way of knowing that. I'm not going to show you my bank account, so and there's other people out there, not me, but there are other people out there that use a platform like this to spread disinformation, to further their own personal agendas, or just for whatever like psychotic reason, just like to lie and get attention. That's not me, and I'm telling you that's not me, but you have no way of really knowing that. And one of the main reasons that I talk about like doing your own research and understanding like the payout schedule. Oh, this is where I was going with that story earlier. So a guy on here was commenting on one of my first Filmhub videos, and he was super pissed off. This is like a year later, he was coming back at me. He was like, I saw your video saying Filmhub was great. So I signed up, I put my movie on Filmhub. It took me a year to get money. And he was like, he was super upset, like cursing me out and da da da. And I was like, he just didn't understand the payout schedule, you know. And in that particular video, I wasn't talking about payout schedules, so I didn't mention it. I'm not going to mention every single aspect of a thing in every video. You know what I mean? So like if I leave something out or omit something, and that something happens to be something that's important to you, and I miss it, then you might be very upset with me. So that's basically why I say like do your own research, and in general, like I'm not talking about me. I mean, look, between me and you guys, I am like I'm just a guy. I'm straight up. I am not here lying. I'm not here exaggerating things. There are certain things that I won't share or can't share because it's proprietary, or I have another partner involved, or whatever it is. But for the most part, like I'm an open book. And even on a lot of that stuff, if you message me privately, I'll respond. Um anyway, that's what I meant about that. And Roku, uh, who want payment to put up the movie. Any thoughts on Roku? Oh, I didn't know Roku was charging. I thought Apple was, but I didn't know Roku was. Actually, I don't know that that's true. Um, I don't think Roku is charging. 'Cause I have a few movies up on Roku, and I'm pretty sure I didn't pay anything for it. But I'll tell you what, guys. We'll double check that, and I'll get back to you. I think Roku is an up and comer. I actually have a couple of direct deals with a couple of different Roku channels that are pretty good. Or at least the deal is. They've just been made, so we'll see how it progresses. But I think Roku is going to be a big thing. And the thing about Roku, remember, yes, there is a channel called Roku, but in general, Roku is just a box that hosts all of these different platforms, and they're all owned individually. They're all going to be different deals. So yeah, I think that Roku is good to try. And the other thing, again, I say about Filmhub, they're putting up all of these other platforms. Like, there's no reason to restrict yourself to any of them. It's all non-exclusive. Let them try it. Like, it's not going to hurt it. And people talk about windowing with some of this. That, well, if I'm on Tubi and I'm on Plex and I'm on this and that, it's like splitting audience attention, and it's not. Like, in general, people that watch Tubi. People that watch watch Plex. People that watch Amazon. There is people have more than one platform, but I really don't think that they're in competition, that your movie is in competition with itself being on different platforms at this level. I just don't buy that. Yeah. The way books taught you to finance a movie. Yeah, totally, man. Uh, Aaron, oh, thanks, man. Thanks for dropping by, man. Appreciate it. And Aaron does a really cool podcast, which is escaping my freaking mind right now. Um, I see his advertisements for it all the time. Really good stuff. Anyway, look him up, Aaron Carlson. He's right there. If you click on his thing, he'll probably take you straight to his YouTube channel. I did a guest spot on one of his episodes. All right, Peter asked me, what editing platform are you using, FPC or PP, Premiere Pro? Premiere. And honestly, the reason I use Premiere is the same reason I'm a Mac guy. It's what I learned on. It's what I've been on for many years. It's what I'm familiar with. So I tend to like it. I don't think it's necessarily better. It's just what I know how to use more. I'm also getting a little bit into Resolve just because people are talking so much positive stuff about it. But so far I still like Premiere. I mean, and I use the interface between Premiere and After Effects and Photoshop a lot. So like I like that interactivity there, which maybe you can do that with Resolve. I don't know, but anyway, I'm familiar with Premiere. It's what I use. Brian asked, God, you guys hear my voice getting a little raspy? Yeah. Brian asked, in between quarters, how often does ND Rights give updates on a project's performance? So ND Rights gives you quarterly reports. However, if you contact them directly, either by email or phone, if you have that relationship, they will give you updates. So they're not going to send them on their own other than quarterly. But like if it's opening month and you want to know how something's performing, you can reach out and they'll share that information with you. The thing about indie rights is like, if you don't take any initiative, like they're not going to do much as far as communicate with you besides the quarterly report. But if you're talking to them and actively working with them and your movies doing whatever, they're very transparent and honest people. I'm happy to work in any subgenre personally. Love all horror. Oh yeah, man. So let's talk a little bit about some good horror genres right now, because like horror is my main like narrative focus. I mean, I've made movies and so many different genres, but like I always come back to horror. It was my first like 2 or 3 movies were in horror, and I keep coming back to it every couple of years. Anyway, right now, if you're talking low budget, like $20,000, creature feature, like, but if find a good effects artist and put at least $2,000 into your monster, maybe 5, but find somebody good. If you can get a good looking monster, like the rest of your movie could pretty much be crap. And there are a lot of lower end distributors that would love to have that movie and would probably even pay you a little bit up front for it. Don't take now, that may or may not come to be with you, but in general, I think that's a good one. Creature features. Another one is to genre mashups, like like alligators versus seagulls, or whatever. That sounds really good. Alligators versus seagulls. Those kind of things tend to do well. You take 2 subgenres that shouldn't go together. Actually, alligators and seagulls that's a bad example. Like zombies versus ghosts, like something that hasn't been done. You've seen zombies and vampires, you've seen zombie westerns. How about zombies and ghosts? I mean, there probably is one, or a ghost zombie or something like that. I think those would be pretty good. I had another one, but honestly I'm drawing a blank on it right now. I might circle back to that. Once again, Ryan Hendrick asks, do you need to have E&O for micro budget films if you go through Filmhub? So you do not absolutely have to have it. Filmhub isn't going to care. Your deal with them is non-exclusive. And I'm assuming this, they probably have some kind of blanket policy that protects them, but it does not protect you. So like if they get sued, they're going to be okay, but they could still come after you personally, which is why people say you should have E&O. So, and I did a whole video on E&O, which I recommend you guys checking out if you want to see my full thoughts on it, and whether you should get E&O in general for lower budget movies. I'm not going to go into my reasonings here, but I will say in general, especially if you're talking like under 50,000, you don't really need it, unless the distributor is requiring it, and a lot of them don't. We can create a comment. Yeah, that would be great, man. I don't know personally how to do that, but yeah, that'd be great if you guys could. And Brian, haha, looks like you did jog your memory. Yes, thank you. 55 million. Yes, exactly, man. Almost everybody has Roku. And even if you don't, like, I don't have a Roku box, but like it came installed on my TV, so yeah. And what's really cool now is like you can go into the main search feature on your TV and type in a movie title, and it'll tell you what streaming platform it is. It'll pull it right up there. Like you don't have to go to the platform and then search. I find that to be really cool. And I think that's going to open up some things for independent films in the future. Aaron's podcast, Around the Reel. Thank you. God dang it. And it's a good title too, man. I felt like a dipshit for getting it. But yeah, it's a really good, he has filmmakers and artists on there, and this 3-host setup, and they're all super personable and good. I'm really looking forward to seeing more from them. And actually, I'm talking about having them on here for an interview, which would be cool. And then Brian, do you have any projects on TCL? I've had just recently, I don't know, 12 or 13 accepted to them and maybe delivered. I haven't looked in a couple of days, but I don't have any numbers or anything like that. So I don't know much about them other than I've been accepted and I'm starting to deliver titles there. But again, like I said kind of earlier, and this might sound glib, but I honestly, I don't care. I don't care where it's being selected or where they're putting it up. I just care about how much I get at the end. So Nightmare Rest Stop, with Amazon no longer accepting nonfiction from independents, do they accept them from Filmhub? No, they do not. They do not take documentaries from independent sources, period. Now they're going to have some pre-existing deals with certain larger studios or production companies, and I'm sure they're looking at and taking their stuff. But as far as, regular, distributors or marketplaces that don't have, any kind of special deal with them, they're not. So most distributors are still not going to be able to get a documentary on Amazon. Almost all the marketplaces aren't going to be able to do it. I don't think there's an aggregator in existence that can do it. I don't know those things for certain, but I don't think so. Right. And I think I was actually just talking to the head of a distribution company, which I won't name, but they were having some discussions with them, behind the scenes. And there is some talk that at least the documentary, the short thing, I don't think is going to change ever, but I think that the documentary thing may change. And I think especially with IMDb TV, which is basically Amazon's AVOD arm, there's a couple of titles that I have that were removed from Prime, and then just a few months ago were selected again for IMDb TV. So, which is Amazon, it's owned by Amazon as part of the platform. So it might just kind of move over to there, but it'll just be much more curated, because like IMDb TV, for example, like it's kind of hard to get on there. Out of, whatever, 60 titles, I think I have 5 or 6 on IMDb TV, so not a ton. Brian asks, has your projects are put onto new platforms? Do you make any marketing moves to promote the new platforms? So yes, I do. And this is something, to be honest, I do miss sometimes. Like for example, we were just talking about TCL, and I honestly, I've been so busy the last couple of weeks, I haven't taken the time to even look up to see if it's there. But usually, like once or twice a month, I look at my dashboard, I see what's been delivered where, and I'll look for it on that platform. And then I'll make a series of posts, usually using material I've already created, and do some promotion for it. I typically do not do paid ads though for platforms that haven't proven themselves yet. So, like for example, like I do tons of paid ads for my stuff on Tubi. I still do paid ads for stuff that's still on Amazon, but everywhere else, not as much. Like I've started to do a couple for Plex because I just have a feeling about Plex, and this is just a feeling, guys. I cannot back this up with any concrete data, but like I have a feeling that that one's going to be something. So like, every now and then I'll put a $1 a day ad and I'll run it through one of the things on Plex, and I also will do a few ads for features that I have, like say on YouTube, like that are put up through this channel or others, because they're direct. The CPMs are pretty good, unless it's been like rated like 18 plus or whatever. If it doesn't get that, your advertising CPMs can be pretty decent on YouTube. So, all right, guys. Man, I usually don't quite do these so long. We're a little over an hour now, so I think I'm gonna go. So thank you so much for supporting this channel. Feel free to hit me up with the, those super chats or, whatever they do. I appreciate, hey dude, I like money as much as anybody. But whatever. Oh, you know what? I like doing questions. Congratulations again on the 5K. I think I can speak for everyone saying thank you. Thank you for sharing so much detailed information and being candid about your experiences. Man, thank you, Brian. I especially appreciate you and all the questions because like I said at the beginning, like I get a lot of anxiety over doing these things. Like I have a lot of social anxiety, and like it's very difficult for me to sit down and actually do a live stream. So these questions, like they help a ton. Like without them, it would be me sitting here like getting all nervous, being like, what do I talk about next? So thank you. And so if you have not subscribed to the channel, please share my videos, like Facebook, Twitter, whatever you do. I appreciate that. Let's get those view numbers up. I would love that. It'll help me sleep better. But whatever you do, keep making movies.